Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we will look at the listening process, that is, what involves the listening from the moment sound waves enter our brain and how we react to it and everything in between. We'll go through the process of listening. So the listening process starts from the perceiving or receiving of the sound wave and interpretation of the or making sense of the sound wave and how it goes through our memory and where we evaluate the message and the responding of the message in some way, and then fulfilling the objective of the message, that is acting on the message. The first step in the listening process is receiving. So when a message is sent in a verbal communication, and when our eardrums perceive that there is a sound wave, that is what it is. There's a difference between hearing and listening, and that's what is different. Listening is more active, is more voluntary than hearing. It's just sound waves being perceived by our our ears. So this step is vulnerable to external noises or barriers to listening. These can include, for example, noise, uh, external noise like disturbance. It could be internal noise, some kind of emotional turmoil going on inside the listener, or it could be lack of attention, for example. After we hear the message, after the message goes through our ears, now our brain tries to make sense of it. We try to infer or we try to deduce the meaning of what is being heard in our ears. So this can be, for example, comparing, contrasting with previous information, previous experiences and expectations, as well as those set forth by our culture, for example, of values, beliefs, ideas, and needs, because the same message can have different interpretation based on different cultures. So it's always best to consider the receiver's cultural nuances when we are communicating. And this is more in-depthly covered in the culture video as part of this series. So the notion of subjective lens is how we interpret what we hear. So this has to do with how our brain segments and how our brain stores the information, just like in a database. Because our brain likes to compare and contrast, and that's how we make sense of the world. So when we hear something, the new information is being compared to what is already in our memory, in our brain. The next step in the listening process is remembering. So what we hear and what we are trying to make sense of is being stored in our short-term memory, and that will be used by the latter steps in the process. So we can aid into this step by making a mental note, that is voluntarily listening more attentively to certain information, or it could be that we can write certain information on a notebook, for example. This can also be used to recall the information later on, especially if the message is very important, or we think it is very important. Step 4 in the listening process is evaluating. Here, we assess the information that is stored in our short-term memory. So, according to the information, according to the context, we try to assess or we try to measure the importance, the applicability of the message, and so on. Here, we also separate facts from opinions, and we assess the quality of the information, the facts being provided by the speaker. So again, our brain does a lot of comparing and contrasting here as well. The next step in the listening process is responding. So as we are communicating with the other person, we are giving away the the feedbacks to the listener or to the other person. It could be verbal feedback, like we say us, or some kind of response to a question, for example, or it could be nonverbal. We nod our head, for example. Through eye contact, also, we can convey so much in a larger audience, or in a when we are giving a presentation, for example, the reaction from the audience, for example, through eye contact or through nodding, or through, for example, through applaud, we get this response from other people about the receptibility of the message. The last step in the listening process is acting. So this is basically what the message is about. A message intends to fulfill something, maybe a task, maybe some kind of response. For example, if it's a request for information, this is where you do it, right? So you've been listening and making sense. Your brain has been making sense of the information. Now, at this stage, you basically fulfill the objective of the message received.